All right, coaches. Some of my favorite interactions in covering hockey have really been with coaches. I became a fan of coaches, frankly, after the football Cardinals left St. Louis, and I was an Otis Anderson fan. And the Cardinals thought he was all washed up. They traded him to the Giants and Bill Parcells. No, we got a 1,000-yard MVP here and a Super Bowl champion. So I kind of really started delving into coaches there and had a lot of fun reading about them, learning about them. And one of my first interactions with a coach would be Phil Roberto, former Blue, was one of the guys thrown in jail when the Blues decided to climb into the stands in Philadelphia. And when you're doing college hockey, for those that know, I mean, those SI departments are fantastic. They give you a chart that's got the lines on it, that has everything you need from a broadcasting standpoint. All the stats are on there. Your preparation is pretty much just make sure you don't get caught in the line of the students going in so you aren't late. So I get used to doing that a little bit while I'm going through college, and I get my first job down in Birmingham, Alabama, and I get to meet Phil, and he was, just a little bit gruffy like he was when he was on the ice. Super great guy, though, but just very focused as a coach. And I walked in and I said, "Hey, Phil, what lines are we using tonight?" And he looked at me and he said, "I wouldn't give those to my mother." No problem. So for the next 6 years, we learned didn't worry about lines. We just called whoever touched the ice. So interaction with coaches is always fun. You'll go to another guy, and the guy says, "Here are the lines." And I think one of my favorite stories, and you heard from John Kelly on Friday night, but on Thursday night, I believe it was actually. But John, at one point, John's dad, who of course Dan is one of the greatest hockey broadcasters of all time, went up to Mike Keenan and asked who the starting goaltender was. Mike Keenan wouldn't tell him, and he basically told him to kiss off it. If you could find out who the starting quarterback is or a starting pitcher is in baseball, why can't you find out who the starting goaltender is? And so, along those lines, it seems rather fitting that we can start things off today with a goaltender, and we're going to start it off with John Vanbiesbrouck. I don't think he needs much of an introduction for those of you that are sitting in this room, but a 19-year playing career, a Vezina Trophy winner, and I guess this year, rather fittingly, because at the end of this hockey season, there will be an expansion draft to start building the new Las Vegas team. We're going to hear from a guy today that was a first overall pick in an expansion draft. So to talk more about the game of hockey with you, let's bring up John Vanbiesbrouck.
Thanks, Chris. It's probably not the best idea when you're introducing a goalie to mention Mike Keenan. Okay? Just as a point of clarity, because Dr. Norris told us that we need to be very clear and creative. So I don't know if I'm going to be clear and creative, but I'm going to talk about goaltending today. And as we bring up the PowerPoint presentation, most of you are probably thinking history and how. Why how? I think Kelly Chase, who started us off, talked about Gordie Howe and a great story, and Kelly did a wonderful job. I was very entertained by Kelly. And Tabes, you probably want to bring him to the next level 5, so he's been excellent. And Chris, thank you for doing it today. But Gordie Howe, why did I mention Howe, H-O-W-E, is because I believe that the most significant thing that we have in the sport is heroes. And Dallas touched on the fact he gets, questioned once in a while, who's influenced your career and your life. And probably the most influential figure in the history of the game was Mr. Hockey, who passed away this year. So I thought it was very fitting, outside of goaltending, is just to do just a couple minutes and spend just giving a small tribute to Mr. Hockey.
He played his first NHL game in 1946. The war had just ended. Mackenzie King was Prime Minister. It would be 6 years before a game was shown on television. He played his last in 1980. His last in the NHL, that is. There would be later cameos to make a buck and prove a point about Father Time. Still, Gordie Howe exited professional hockey in a world unimaginable when he entered.
An ambidextrous stickhander. Howe retains possession of the puck as long as he can. Gordie Howe scores on his blistering backhand shot.
To fully appreciate Howe, perhaps you had to have seen him in his youth, when he jockeyed with the rocket for supremacy, when he fell into the boards and almost died, when, by the beginning of the 1960s, it was already the consensus that he was the finest hockey player who had ever lived. He had great hands, great vision, great strength, and a mean streak a mile wide that belied his off-ice sweetness.
That's great.
He played his first NHL game in 1946. The war had just ended. Mackenzie King was Prime Minister. It would be 6 years before a game was shown on television. He played his last in 1980. His last in the NHL, that is. There would be later cameos to make a buck and prove a point about Father Time. Still, Gordie Howe exited professional hockey in a world unimaginable when he entered.
An ambidextrous stick-hander, Howe retains possession of the puck as long as he can. Gordie Howe scores on his blistering backhand shot.
To fully appreciate Howe, perhaps you had to have seen him in his youth, when he jockeyed with the rocket for supremacy, when he fell into the boards and almost died, when, by the beginning of the 1960s, it was already the consensus that he was the finest hockey player who had ever lived. He had great hands, great vision, great strength, and a mean streak a mile wide that belied his off-ice sweetness, that lurked behind the aw shucks grin.
Well, I'm just stretching my luck. I hope to put in 20. I've always admired that mark, and if I can achieve it, I'll be a very happy man, and I'll be #1 in the pension.
The stuff he did in those much nastier days, not just with his elbow, but with his fists and with his stick, would have got him suspended now, over and over again, as his hockey-playing sons admit.
It's awesome to take a visit down memory lane, especially for a hero like Gordie. And one of the principal things that I wanted to mention about him, and as Kelly was telling his story when he opened, the one thing that really came out and I think is a staple for a lot of hockey players that have been your heroes and my heroes over the years is the principle of humility. I think humility is a significant impact on every player everywhere, just about in every sport. So as coaches, a lot of times, I did a camp 2 weeks ago, we're barking instructions down the ice, and you look in, little players' eyes, and they don't know if you're mad at them or not, so you kind of have to qualify your remarks on saying, I'm not yelling at you, I'm yelling for you. But the impact that humility has on people is a really, really significant thing. And when I was with Tony La Russa at a golf tournament a year ago, he said, and he continues to say, that hockey players have the mark that other sports don't have. He said it's the mark of humility. So as coaches and as we carry on with our sessions, and we talk about goaltending, I want to try to break some stereotypes and some stigmas that have gone on for years, okay? Now, it's going to be very difficult for me to do that because a lot of what I'm going to say is going to cut a couple ways, and you might not be in agreement with me, but that's okay. I just want you to try to pay attention and stay awake for about 45 minutes or so. But the beginning, when players played without masks, and I shuffled through a bunch of photos to try to display the pictures that tell 1,000 words. When Jacques Plante first wore a mask, it was said to him that he lost his courage. The one thing that he didn't want to lose was his nose, is what he said. And so the mask became a real piece of equipment that has identified goalies over the years. The other thing that's identified goal has been style. And in the history of the game, style has really mattered because the stigmas that are out there towards goalies is, that they're different. They're special. You've all said it. Come on. You got to admit it, right? As you look at me right now, you're probably like, hey, he's not so different. He's not so special. Special ed, but Ken Dryden dispelled those things through a book that he wrote called The Game. And all of a sudden, a goalie changed a little bit of that image by being smart and intelligent and analytical and tall. There were a lot of small goalies then. I mean, I'm now a fossil at 5'9". A goalie of my height will never be drafted again, ever. It's not good to be a fossil, but it's true. There may be a goalie that isn't drafted, that gets found somewhere in junior or college somewhere, that makes it, but he won't be drafted. But intelligence, being analytical, understanding the game, came through Ken Dryden. Only played 8 years, won the Stanley Cup 6 times. Got out of the game, went into management, went into politics, wrote a book. Am I breaking the stigma yet? How many of you have written a book? The importance to the history of the game is defining the future. I want to ask you a question. I'm going to show you this clip and hopefully it plays. But I'm going to ask you, what do you think when you see this?
Picard, out to Tim Ecclestone, back to his own line to Jean-Guy Talbot. Talbot out to Keenan, he missed it, and Bobby Orr flipped it out at center to Sanderson. Sanderson shooting it into the St. Louis zone. Racing in is Carlton for the Bruins. Centered it up close in front, and Talbot cleared it. Here's Don Orey, a shot. That's blocked by Talbot. Now Sanderson a drive, and that one whistled wide. Orey for the Bruins, tied up by Ecclestone and Berenson. Westfall rolled it in front. Sanderson tried a shot that was wide, and Keenan cleared it but not out. Bobby Orr behind the net to Sanderson. Orr! Bobby Orr! Scores in the Boston Bruins! Have won the Stanley Cup!
Now they're going to show a couple replays of the goal, so for you coaches, we're going to slow it down a little bit, okay? So we can analyze what actually happened.
Their 22-year-old sensation scores after 40 seconds of overtime. And the Bruins win the Stanley Cup. Here's a look at it again. It was centered, and Orr flipped it in behind Glenn Hall on Sanderson's pass. Another look. In behind the net to Sanderson, out in front to Orr, and Bobby Orr made no mistake in beating Glenn Hall.
So probably the most famous play in hockey history. So what are you thinking when you see that? Anybody? What are you thinking? Anybody want to say something? I'm not going to be condescending. It was a great play. We lost. We won. I know a few Southies there in Boston. This is the greatest clip in the history of the game. I know. What do you got? Good pinch. Missed assignments. So we got the offensive side. We got the defensive side. It was a defenseman scoring. It was a miracle. Crease violation. Okay. Probably not what I'm looking for, but it's okay. All right, so we've got a few. You want to add a couple things?
Yeah, I noticed the near side guy who was supposed to be covering Orr was just generally unaware of the threat level. He should have thrown a stick check or something from there. I mean, you can't just let him walk in.
You can't just let him walk in? He's the greatest player maybe in the history of the game. He just changed the course of destiny in hockey in one play. It's the play that has been photographed and shown the most in the history of the game. And I love us that we're analytical about it. I'm going to get there. All right. I know you're probably from Jersey or something. You need to get there quicker. I know that. So, same thing. All right. Jersey. All right. You guys take the train. I know that. All right. So the Here goes the rabbit trail. All right. So the point that I'm going to try to make here, all right, with that, this is Bobby Orr changed the course of history in time. And in this clip, the focus was likely on Orr, all right? Went on to win a Norris Trophy in every year he played but one. I mean, that's pretty good. You don't just get lucky for 8 straight years, okay? But the thing is that when I look at this clip, I look at one of the most famous goalies of all time. As coaches, you may look at it from the offense and the strategy, and he could have defended it, and how did this happen? I look at it, that's Glenn Hall. Glenn Hall. He was trying to poke check. I look at Glenn Hall just lost. Glenn Hall played 490 straight games without a mask. 2 years in Detroit, and the others with Chicago without a mask. Maybe one of the most courageous players in the history of our sport, but we look at Bobby Orr. Goaltenders look at goaltenders. And one of the people said it here, we lost. St. Louis lost. But out came the magnificent leap of Bobby Orr. Now, in this game, Glenn was playing with a mask, and some of the things that, on the stigma side of it, for Glenn, because his game preparation is that he threw up before every game, and when I heard that story, that he threw up before every game, I was like, 490 straight games you threw up? That's some preparation. Some way to prepare, but it takes courage to play the position without a mask. But how about just playing 490 straight games? Was he nuts? Was he crazy? He's a goalie, right? He's crazy. He's different. But you need him. What's the most important position in the sport? Thank you. I didn't hear it from this side. You're in full denial. That's why I'm up here trying to teach you that you need to acknowledge your goalie. Now, Dr. Norris said some really significant things. Okay? And I'm going to get to him, but one of the things that he said is you need to be innovative. And probably the most innovative goalie in the history has been Tony Esposito. Tony O. Obviously, you can see a lot of net there. You don't see that net today, right? But Tony O brought us into the butterfly era, the 2-pad stack. Now, in this picture, you can't see it, but he had something that he built that currently lasts today, was something known as the cheater. It was the bridge between the cuff and the thumb. Now every glove has what's known as the cheater. It's not even called the cheater anymore because we just accept it. But Tony was legendary for putting things between his legs, and I couldn't find a picture of the netting that he had that covered the 5-hole that shot the puck back out the center ice. But that's some innovation, constantly thinking. Now, there used to be a time where they measured pads before the playoffs. And as the story went, he used to take the stuffing out of the pads. It was deer hair then, back then, believe it or not. Deer hair. And they used to stuff his pads, and they went from 14 inches to 16 inches after they put the stuffing back in for the playoffs. And these are the types of innovations that we've come through, okay? And was Tony nuts? Well, what's not in this photo also is after his good friend Rogie Vachon got hit in the eye with a slap shot, Tony was scared. And he tells a story that I had so much fear that I had to put something over my mask. So he put a cage over his mask. He couldn't play without having that cage on. Would it matter if you got hit 2 inches below, you'd break your face open? But the mental side of the game is he couldn't put on his mask without this cage on. And now the innovation is to another extreme. I want to show you a clip of innovation. It's the best way I can sum this up.
And the Oilers bring it back. Chatin across the line, drops it, in for Waite, going in on goal. Oh, what a save! Waite had Hasek beaten, and Hasek got the right hand down and made an outstanding save.
Well, if anybody is wondering why this guy right here, Hasek, is one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League, this will show you right here. Dug Waite in. How does he do it? How does he do it? He is such an acrobatic type of goaltender with a tremendous second effort. This is all this is a second effort. He's beat, completely beat, but yet somehow he battles to keep the puck out. And Dug Waite, he must wonder what he's going to have to do to score.
So, how do you teach that? Right? Is he a slinky? I mean, I have 4 boys, and my oldest boy, who's 28 now, when he used to watch Hasek, and we used to talk a little bit, and he wasn't a goalie, but he said he's so lucky. Dominic Hasek is so lucky. And I said to him, he's won 5 Vezina trophies. It's kind of tough to be lucky for 5 straight years. But you can't teach that. And there are things that you can't teach in goaltending. You just can't. Now, we need to get past that, because the innovation from Tony O to Dominic Hasek and doing that Ole save, which is magnificent, a lot of it comes through God-given ability. It just does. So don't think that you can teach everything. You can't. More is caught than taught in this position. So if you feel the burden that you've got to teach every single aspect of the game, especially in goaltending, and then you cross over or don't cross over the line of I'm not worthy because I don't know anything about goaltending, you need to get rid of that and erase that from don't to do. The biggest difference in the game from Jerry Cheever's stitched up fantastic mask to Henrik Lundqvist, where you can't even see his neck, his throat, or any part of his body but his eyes, is intimidation. There's no more intimidation today. There's no more come down and shoot it at Vanbiesbrouck's head and he'll change. Because that's happened. Ask Prongs. It's absolutely happened. But we don't have that anymore. So how are you adapting to the changes? Where guys play now from their knees up instead of from the crease down. How are you adapting to that? Adapt, change, and modify. We have to renew and remake ourselves every day to these changes. But you have to walk in. 3 common approaches that we've had over the years. Leave them alone. Most live by the perception that goalies need to be left alone. I'm going to tell you that is so wrong. So wrong. And now some of you are kind of squirming in your seats because you think that you don't know enough about the position. The second one, goalie coach. It's effective for technical aspects. Okay? Goalie's not just a technical position, folks. It's not. The motivation that goes into your team doesn't change when you get to your goalie. He's motivated the same way. He might not want to listen to Hell's Bells, but the motivation is the same. You need a goalie coach. I understand that. You need assistance. I was talking to I was sitting in on some of the breakout sessions. And in the 12 and under one, we understand fully that you need to, it's hard to manage when you're the only person on the ice. How do you help your goalie? How do you do these things? I'm going to get to that in a minute, but the approaches, like assistant coaches, I mean, I know that this is probably more for higher level, junior maybe and up, but you need to be the pilot. You need to direct the ship. If you hand that, I mean, I watch games all the time. When I don't see the head coach just drawing up the 2 minute, with 2 minutes to go, goalie's pulled, and they send their assistant coach out to draw up the play, I'm looking, that's a fail. To me, that's got to come directly from the head coach. Now, that's my opinion, and I know that I'm saying things that might cut both ways. But direction comes from the top. And I'm going to get to 3 principles and practical approaches to try to help you get through the stigmas of that they're special and need to be left alone. What, they don't put their pants on the same way in their shirt? But you know better, right? Because you don't know anything about the position. That's interesting. These are the things that everybody can do. Dr. Norris said it's a level of trust that needs to be created. A clear level of trust. So with trust, you want work. Work leads to details. Details lead to compete. Compete leads to presence. And presence leads back to trust. It comes full circle. So what are you going to pour in? Whether you're a 10U, 12U, 14U, junior. Jeff Blashill got up here and showed you a bunch of drills of split ice using blue line in that pro guys do every day. They come under the puck, which is all fundamental, consistent stuff on a third of the ice. You've been doing this for a long time. All of you have done exactly what Jeff Blashill has done. It's no different. What age group? Because fundamentals are fundamentals. The difference is how you approach the fundamentals. So what's the most important thing that your son or daughter wants to hear? Hey, way to go. And you build that level of trust up. Get in their world for a minute. You like pizza? What do you like? Invest. If you tell these young goalies that they're different or weird, what are they going to be? Is that what we want? It's pretty simple, isn't it? Now, I could listen to Boyle talk all the time, about his jumps and stuff. He's like a stand-up comic, that guy. Seriously, because his delivery he sounds like George Carlin. Everything he says. It's funny, and I'm like, well, it's not that funny because I don't know if I agree with a 10-year-old lifting weights. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with everything we're saying? No. And we don't expect you to. Because that's what becomes creative. The next piece is the technical aspect. Now, it doesn't go around the same thing and finish up at skating, like trust, but these are the most important things to do. Now, skating, and I was in one of the other breakout sessions that I was listening to yesterday, skating to you as a coach may mean that you want your goalies to skate. You want them to skate just like the players. But skating to goalie people mean movements. C cutting. Now, at the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you some resources, and USA Hockey has some great resources to supply to everyone. They're put into usahockey.com under goaltending, and they're fantastic resources. And the reason that I'm saying this now is the fact that more is caught than taught. Goalies are visual learners. They want to emulate, a person was talking in the breakout session about Jonathan Quick, and my guy says, oh, I want to play like Jonathan Quick. As I stated at the beginning, he may not ever play like Jonathan Quick, but he needs a hero. That's important. So don't make him feel weird because he can't do it. Not yet. But encourage quickness, hands, awareness, and positioning. All central things that you want. Probably most importantly is communication. Be direct. Okay? You want them to do something, tell them. Sorry. Tell them. Don't ask them. The worst word that you could say to a goalie is, okay? Is that okay? That's not, you don't need their permission, you're given direction. You do it. That's what they want to hear. And then, did I do it good? No, you got to work on it. It's not that tough, You got to work on inclusion. Including them in drills. So the answer to the 12 and under crew is a lot of the times that when you set up your practice plans and your drills and things, include your goalies. How many exchanges do they make with their defensemen? It happens probably 10 to 15 times a game. That little bump. And if they don't bump it correctly, that you don't break out, and you stand there with your arms folded and you're looking at the goalie and you give him a scowl, what do you think he's doing to you? You ever think of that? I'm going to show that guy. They get all pissed off too, and they have a right. Access. How about asking them, because they're analytical, and some of them are pretty smart, okay? From time to time, you might want to go to them and ask them a question. Hey, what do you see? It's amazing when you ask a question, the answer you might get. I mean, not all of it is going to be great, but they'll just unload a lot of analytical things that you need to know. Access their information, which helps you include, and then it becomes a part of your development. You need to, that relationship piece from coach to goaltender needs to be there, and I'm being repetitive for a reason, okay? Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? You're going to rely on your goalie guy who comes in a couple times a week? How do you know what he's saying? How do you know what he's saying? I'm probably, in this room, I'm not going to go out on a limb. You probably disagree with more that he said to your goalie than, you're wondering, what the heck is he saying? Because he's, the goalie's not getting any better. So you got to invest in that. And then the last thing with this is to solidify your message. What do you want him to do? Do you want him to stay on his feet more? Then tell him to stay on his feet. Now, the technique of the position has changed, and I'm not trying to bring people back to the history because history defines our future. What I'm trying to say is communicate. Communicate. Be clear and communicate, because that's what Dr. Norris told us to do. But the one thing that you want to communicate is consistency. Routines create consistency. Superstitions create dependency. Now, there's a big difference. So now we're getting into a little higher level here. And as we grow to the higher levels, you have to involve yourself with saying, hey, are you starting to prepare? What did you eat? Did you get enough sleep? And all the things that all the professors have told us are pretty simple and practical approaches because you care. Because you want him or her to stop the puck. That's all you care about. I get it. But consistency is really what you want over the period of time. And consistency is what the position demands. It doesn't demand the Olé save. It demands consistency. And if you know that you can trust that goalie, he or she, you're going to have a great relationship, right? And it's going to create, the consistency does not get in the way of creativity. It enhances it. Now, some people think that it's at war with each other. If I'm doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that's insanity, and all these great quotes that we got. Well, listen, from Jeff Blashill to Peter Lavalette, who's going to speak, to Smitty, who's coming up here, consistency, consistency, consistency. All right? Because it leads to the creativity. And if you consistently, outside of goaltending, if you consistently to do creative skill drills, then they're going to be consistent. Does that make sense, or does that confuse you? Because the most difficult thing to do in any sport, in any position, is to reproduce success. Most questions I get is, how do I get my goalies to press the restart button after they give up a bad goal? You know, and I was talking in the back just before I came up with Kurt Kleinendorf, and Kurt said to me, you know, the one thing I loved about Marty Brodeur is that, you know, when a goal got scored, he just fished the puck out of the net and put his hands down on his pads and got ready for the next play. And at the end of the day, these simple things that we want to have and for our kids are simple things that we want to have for our kids. So they grow and can be creative and can develop their own styles, because in the position of goaltending, there is still style. Even though a lot of them are starting to play the same way and use the same movement drills, there still is style. And it's good that they create their own style. Which leads to preparation. Now, this is a longer video, but all this stuff could add up to this.
We break up playing goal into three primary components: the physical part of the game, the mental part of the game, and literally the emotional part of the game. Every one of them is more demanding than almost every profession on the planet.
Goaltending, unfortunately, is under the spotlight a lot. You get a lot more credit than you deserve a lot of the time, and probably get a little more criticism than you deserve sometimes, and then sometimes it's spot on. So it's just one of those, you know, everyone can see. You can't hide anywhere if you're a goalie. It's pretty evident if you make a mistake. Usually when I'm trying to find a room, you're like sprinting around the whole building doing stairs.
I appreciate that.
You want to make sure you're staying healthy, and that has to do with not overstretching, just keeping your body in the warmed up state instead of going in cold. You add things if your body's tight in certain places. Something I've learned along the way. Obviously your sight, your ability to pick up things quick on the ice is a big part of our game. Warm yourself up doesn't come naturally every game, so you have to find a way to force your body into realizing it's time to focus.
Braden knows himself very well. He knows what he needs to be successful. He knows how to prepare. He is a very cerebral guy. And when you put all those things together, his routine is years and years in the making. It did not happen one day or one season. And he knows what works for him.
you see that they play at this level, there's the top guys you don't see that in the AHL. Those type of shots, releases, playmaking ability.
You have to be mentally tough, mentally strong. You've got to know how to reboot your computer. When you give up a goal, you have to be ready for the next shot. There are very few of us who do our job in front of 18,000 people and millions on television. And it's not just to do it for one day. We're doing this day in and day out, and in the NHL, 82 times per playoff.
Years in the making. Years in the making. You know, the most significant impact and things that Braden Holtby really can't talk about are people like you in his life that made that preparation happen. Now, most people will say that the most important thing you want in a goalie is passion, and you want them to love the game. You want them to be analytical and cerebral. But all these things come with just tiny details of things that they love to do on a daily basis. It's a daily thing. Hockey is an everyday sport of renewing and remaking yourself all the time. Consistency's there, but doing new things is not a bad thing. You got to renew and remake yourself all the time. It's not, you know, Blash had that video of static and chaos and selecting what to do. At the highest levels for goaltending, preparation is the most significant thing. It really is. Ask Michael Phelps today. He's going to be our most decorated athlete in the history of sports. He broke records from 2,000 years or something like that. And the reason he'll tell you that he prepares is that just in case that water gets in his goggles or he loses his cap or something distracts him. That's the reason you practice. That's the reason you prepare. You get prepared to play games. Now, I'm going to say something here that's going to cut both ways. Winning matters. Now, I understand for 8U and 9U and everybody gets a trophy. But winning matters. It does. To everyone out here, you want to win. To every kid that plays. I have 3 grandkids now. 3 grandkids that I see them compete every day. They compete for toys. They want to win. The older one wants to take it from the little one. I got it. I won. I'm like, yeah, you want to compete. Way to go, dude. Let's go get a bat, you know? So I don't want to get up here and say to you that winning doesn't matter. It matters in everything we do. Now, concepts, as far as training, you see them out there, even in the small area games. They want to win the race. Kevin Reiter talked about in the 12 and under section. I create battle drills for my goalies that first one to the puck, they start on their knees. Everybody wants to battle for something. It's true. Now, you might not agree with me. You might say, John, this is why you're weird and a little different. I get that. But I think most of you are with me. Because winning matters. Because today, at 11:30, our time, USA will play against the Czech Republic for the gold medal at the Hlinka tournament. Now, most of you don't know what that is, and I get it. But all these players that are there are going to be the next picks in the 2017 NHL draft. You may not even know that, but that's okay. But winning matters. It matters to every athlete that's performing in the Olympics. I don't want to squelch that it doesn't matter, because the most important player needs to know that it matters. Because once you put on the pads, whether they're old, new, or whatever, you don't want to fail. And goaltending And what Dr. Norris talks about is you have to fail in order to succeed. So winning does matter. Whether you're a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a coach, a former goalie, a fossil, it matters in everything we do. Everything. Every business. Like it doesn't matter whether you're successful or not. I think I made my point. Analytics. I want to just spend in my little time left here talking about some things that are happening in our sport. And with goaltending, one of the, probably because this has been sensitive to me for a long time. And it's kind of funny to me, but the inside joke to that is off-ice officials have controlled the shot clock in every building forever and ever. And I used to have this argument, and it probably sounds selfish, and I'm supposed to be humble, but I used to go up to the off-ice official and say, you know, you missed about 5 shots tonight. And he'd say, no, I didn't. And I'd say, yes, you did. He goes, well, a flip in from outside the blue line isn't a shot. I said, and if it goes in? He goes, well, our computers aren't programmed that way. I said, well, my computer's programmed that way, and it's going to cost me a lot of money. Save percentage is a team stat more than it is an individual stat. And goaltending stats are part of team stats more than individual because teams play different styles and goaltenders have no control over it. And that may sound like a little bit of a loose term, and it's probably sensitive to me, but the analytics of the game, if you start getting into analytics, and I suggest you do because I'm going to include some resources at the end for you, and I got this from actually an NHL.com story, and I think it was Valaket that wrote it about the new analytics that are coming forward that I think are really cool. Now, one of them for all of hockey is known as Corsi, developed by a goalie, all right, who had nothing to do but sit on the sidelines and watch, you know, Dominik Hasek for years. So he didn't have a lot to do. So he came up with his own analytic called Corsi. Now, I'm not going to get into all the technical details of Corsi, but I think that you can develop your own analytics. And I think that's probably one of the coolest things that's coming through the game. But when it comes to goaltending and you start charting chances and where they come from, and we argue over, is it the arc, is it the house, you know, and all the things that we, you know, agree to disagree on, I think that the goaltending position and quality chances and where they come from, and is it a 2-on-1? And if you make that save on a 2-on-1, that's only one shot on goal. But it's probably the best chance of the game. So it's very significant. And I think that those are the types of things that are coming through now that I think you all have probably known for a long, long time, but we just haven't put them down in statistics. And I think that USA Hockey and the goaltending program that's now a new initiative that I'm going to get to in a second is trying to come up with some new graphs and charts and systems to try to create an analytic type of program that tells a different story about goaltending. Now, I don't want to go too strong on this, but on save percentage and goals against, because those were our two measurables over time. But, you know, it is what it is. And I just wanted to mention it to you because some of you are stats people and you love stats, and I think it's an important part to building that trust with goaltenders. If you create a different set of stats for goalies and you show them it and say, hey, listen, John, this is the way that I see you, and this is your save percentage, and this is your goals against, man, that's development. That's education. They're going to go through the wall for you if you do that for your guys. Who here does stats for their team? Do you guys keep stats as coaches? Couple hands. I would encourage you to keep stats for your team. It's a great way to communicate. Now, you can juggle on the side of, well, I don't want the best player to know that he scored 600 goals and that makes the guy down there. Don't try to psychoanalyze it. Just do it because it shows trust. It shows that you're analytical. I think it's a very important part to the game that's advancing us beyond our years. Our technology is starting to get there. And we got smartphones and dumb phones and all these good things. But the point here is that analytics do matter, and it's going to be the wave of the future, and we need to get in tune with it. So my analysis is mostly on consistency, and I was trying to break some stereotypes. I've tried to dispel some of those stereotypes and not have you all think that we're weird. So the analysis on this is, use every method to enhance the position, from practical to technical, and most of all, communicate. Development comes through a full complement of fundamental drills, practices, and games, and not just through wins and losses, even though I said winning matters. I'm not contradicting myself. Goaltending is a unique position. Every team needs it, but struggles to teach it. I would encourage you to have like a goalie coach, a consultant, but I would love for you to give direct instruction to your goalies. I think that's extremely important. Now, I'm probably more sensitive to that. I run a team and I get on the ice with our goalies, and it's great giving direction to them, but sometimes they do need a different voice. It's true. Become a study on all your players, including goaltenders, and you will be surprised at how responsive and normal they are. So I broke the stigmas. I know it's done. It's over. You're all fixed. All right. So the last thing I want to touch on here, and then Chris said we're going to take some questions because Chris is running the show now, that he showed up, one day, so he's running the show. So is the USA Hockey development, starting with Phil O'Sear as the new ADM goaltending manager. I want to give Phil a shout out. He's actually at the Helinka tournament. That's why he couldn't be here. The affiliate goaltending coordinators all throughout the country, currently 24 out of 34 affiliates are participating, and it's only in its first year, which is very encouraging. Coaching goaltending and supporting you all in the field is the initiative, and that's what USA Hockey wants to do, and it's come through our former president, Ron DiGregorio, who's a former goalie and still plays and has a real great heart for the position as well as people and leadership. But it's creating plans in the best possible environment for all involved, and I think that the words of environment have been kind of central. What kind of environment have you been creating for your athletes? And from the goaltending position, that's one of the initiatives, and it's a real grassroots initiative with a goal of reaching all districts and every organization with the quick change pads. Those things are really cool, and some of the new jerseys that have pads in them for the youngsters that can try the position. It's a position that, can be tried without the intimidation factor of getting hurt. And so that's kind of cool. And this is a stat from Phil, and I'm not going to throw Phil under the bus, but this is a pretty big-time stat, and that is the goal is to improve the culture of goaltending in the U.S. with the goal of 51% of the minutes played in the NHL to be played by American goalies by 2030. So you got some work to do, which is cool. I mentioned the USA Hockey website, and this is what it looks like. This is a screenshot, so it's not live or active, but you can see there's basics and development and dryland training and resources. And Cameron is here, who helped put together the goaltending site, and he's done a great job. And they're going back to, after this session, they're going back to Plymouth to record some more with age-appropriate goaltending drills. They're using 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds, so that's really cool, and it's a great resource for you because, again, goalies are visual learners, and you could simply do this. Tell your goalies, hey, go on the USA Hockey website, try to imitate those 3 drills, and I'll see you in the morning, type of thing. And it's really cool because that's what's going to happen with young goalies is they're going to try to emulate, okay? Now, right now, the only resources you have are what you have on TV. So a kid will try to be Jonathan Quick, and he won't be able to get there yet. So that's kind of the support there. And I wanted to give a shout out to the great job of USA Hockey in developing that. And then I've got some resources and links, and all these presentations are going to be given to you. But I mentioned the fact that NHL.com had some analytics that would support you, and also ESPN has some great articles from Ben Scrivens about the position, and I think it's worth reading. So that's what I have for you all. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Oh, do we have any questions, Chris?
Well, I'll start with one for you. So,
is this your question?
Yeah, I think it's a question that, yeah,
right.
It's my question. I got a couple of them, actually.
We'll allow it.
So, if you have coaches out here, maybe they grew up, maybe they played defense, maybe they played forward, they can relate to that. What do you tell a coach out here in terms of the actual relating to the kid that's playing a position and just getting that aspect in there? Because some of them just may not even be comfortable in some ways talking that position.
Yeah, and I think most aren't comfortable talking about the position, but you don't have to talk about the position. That's my point. You might say to yourself, well, John, I need to show him a drill because I'm going to show the other guys a drill. But are you really demonstrating it? Or are you just drawing it up on a whiteboard? Are you actually demonstrating your drills? Are you skating through them and actually showing people and showing all your players how to do all the drills? Or are you just going to a board and drawing it up? See, that's really where the crossroads is. You don't have to demonstrate the goalies and get on your knees and show them how to do these things and butterfly slide to the post. You just have to ask them to do it. And that's as simple as that. And they're going to be happy to. They will. And I think that's the point I've been trying to make is just that.
All right, somebody did throw in one of these cards. How good would goalies be today with equipment of the 70s and 80s?
Well, that's a subjective question. But the equipment today is totally different. All right, we had a conversation yesterday again in the breakout session of, tightening pads, and I used to wear my pads real tight. The goalies today don't wear their pads. They wear them loose so they can rotate on the leg. I think that part of that question I'd like to answer in a different way is I think that the goalie's position is athletic, even though there's not a lot of different styles in it. But most of it has to, like what the NHL is going to do here, and I don't even know what they're going to do, but, talking to some of the goalie guys that are out there and changing back so you do see a lot of net. I think they're going to try to revamp the equipment back down, and maybe Prongs can talk to that because he knows more. But I believe that equipment in the position, like I mentioned, is taking away the intimidation. So we don't want goalies to get hurt, but we want to reduce and slim down the size, right? And I think that it's going to take time to get there. But how the position play is being played now, you're not going to see skate saves anymore, right? Goalies are going to wear skates with no cowling now. There's not going to be that plastic boot. And all these things are starting to ramp up to where the position is played from the knees up now. And I don't know if we're putting Jack back in the box on that one.
Well, along those lines, I think the new pads, they'll be contoured a little bit more. When you talk to goaltenders out there nowadays, some of them are actually excited about it because they say it allows more of the goalies with the athleticism to shine a little bit more, and that athletic ability will be forced to become out more because of the contour of the pads and some of the, I guess, the holes that they'll create versus the pads they're wearing right now. Yeah,
the whole protecting the 5-hole, like there's not a lot of 5-hole anymore, whereas it's an old joke. You could drive a bus through my legs. Okay, I'm over it. Okay, but the thing is that the 5-hole slip shot, that was the sole focus, was to take that away, that the percentage is it's a percentage game. But look at goalies like Quick and whoever you want to mention. We showed Braden Holtby and what went into his preparation, and is that about pads? I think you could give him smaller pads. I think he'll still be the top in the game because of his preparation. He's gonna renew and remake himself because he's a pro. And you give him whatever you give him, he's still gonna be fantastic, okay? Because Bobby Orr scored with a straight stick and a Northland, you know? And if you gave him a one-piece stick, he would be better, you know? That's just the way he would have been enormously good. Now, I mean, he was just fantastic. But the point to that is, I think you're going to give pros whatever, and they're going to renew and remake themselves, and they're going to conform.
Any other questions out there? We can hear you if you just want to ask it. No? Yeah, go ahead.
So, Coach, one of the things that I struggle with coaching goaltenders, practice is fine and the locker room is fine, right? Game preparation. When I have contact in games, they're on a freaking island, right? They can't even come to the bench when they're in the second period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you include them in the game more, right? I have defensemen go talk to them every whistle, right? Hey, go just tap on the pads.
Yeah.
But are there things that we can do structurally as hockey coaches in encouraging leagues and federations we can't make them a captain in some fashion,
Yeah.
right?
The question is goalies are out on an island, and how do you include them in games a little bit more? And I mean, I don't think I have an answer to that question. Allowing them to come to the bench and including them and letting, they take their own water bottle too. They go back to their island, here they go. Let me take my water bottle and everything. I mean, that's what we do. Can we change that? I mean, I think we can. But are we there yet? And I think it comes through questions like this that we really need to include the goalies into the team a little bit more. And you can do some crazy things. Like, I've never seen radical things are like, have you ever pulled your goalie in the first period and just played with 6 attackers? Why wouldn't anybody do that? I guarantee you're going to score. You might get scored on, but why doesn't anybody do it? And we can get into all these subjective questions, and I'm not saying to do it, but I do think that we need to get them off the island. But the minnow still has a hole in it. From Gilligan's Island, it's an old thing. I know you don't get that, but...
It seems like they're two extremes. They're either the coaches, the player coaches, are not involved at all, or they're trying to teach a one-legged kid how to butterfly slide. I wouldn't want my dentist to give me a colonoscopy. They're both physicians.
You wouldn't want your dentist to give you a colonoscopy.
Line of the day, right there.
Wow.
Nobody is going to top that line.
Well, I'm out
right
of time, but...
They're trying to teach a one-legged man, trying to get them ready for an ass-kicking contest.
A one-legged man getting ready for an ass-kicking contest.
I take that back.
Wow. So, let me understand your question, though.
We need to do something that's it's either there's, in my experience, being either not enough involvement from the head coach and assistant coaches to the goaltenders where the goalies are orphans, or there's so much involvement that literally the head coach comes in and not telling them how to close the 5-hole or how to do the power push, literally when they don't even know that the kids might not have an ACL.
Right, and it's management of the... It's everything or nothing. I mean, I think that somewhere in between, it's always a compromise and all that stuff. But the most important thing, okay, from the head coach to the goalie is investing your time, okay? And if you know some technical pieces and you do some research, invest your time in the resources that we have just to get to know a little bit and start there. And don't go to the all or nothing principle, okay? And that's really, break through, in your own details to get to a point where you're comfortable, too. And I know, don't get in the comfort zone. I heard Dr. Norris, okay. And I'm not going to ride a bike on a ledge either like that sicko did, all right? And I'm not going to skateboard with the pink people either, okay? It's just not going to happen. But the point is that we can start breaking through the island. We can start breaking through in little principles, okay? And that's what I'm suggesting, okay? And I don't like all or nothing, pedal the metal stuff, but I do think that, addressing some of these things are going to help you take the step in, okay? You don't have to take the plunge, but take the step in.
Over there, right in the front row.
Yes,
How many okay, the question is how do we teach them to play the puck a little bit more, and because of the trapezoid, and who wants their goalies to play the puck? Raise your hand. Well, there's a lot of people. I would think that you didn't want your goalies to play the puck. So there goes my funny comment.
Next question.
So I'm stumped. But the answer to your question is, at youth hockey, we don't have the trapezoid. Playing the puck takes a lot, okay? And stopping the puck is different than playing the puck. So what is it you want them to do? Do you really want them to hit the glass and exit the zone with the puck? Do you want them to play it down to the forwards when they're coming back on the power play and they diffuse the whole system? Be direct in what you want. You know, tell them, don't play the puck when we're on the power play, you dummy. You know, we're coming back for it. We're doing the swing. No, I take the dummy part out. But I was told that, so I'm a little sensitive, you know. Roger Nielsen was that guy who was a great guy in Dallas. Is given, you know, Roger Nielsen, here's a story. I got to get off the stage, okay? But Roger Nielsen was a great coach, and I had him in 3 different places and all the rest of that. But he was also known as the unknown coach. Did you know that he got fired and rehired in the same day for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Did you know that? He went to breakfast, real quickly, he went to breakfast and was listening to the radio at the diner across the street from the Maple Leaf Gardens, and he heard he was fired. He heard he was fired. He went into the owner. Who was the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs way back when? Harold Ballard. So he goes into Harold Ballard, and he goes, Harold, I got one question for you. And he says, okay, one question. He goes, who's going to coach tonight? Well, I haven't really thought about that. So he came out onto the bench. Roger's going to coach this game. He came out with a bag over his head. Anybody remember that? He was the unknown coach, and then he took the bag off, and it was Roger, and it was a big laugh. But anyway, why would I tell that story? I got to get off the stage. All right.
We had one more over here. We got time for one more. Go ahead.
Confirming the weird thing.
Yeah.
All right. What's your take? I did a study for my thesis because I'm a former goalie, and I've had my goalies for the last year during practice wear their earbuds, listening to
No.
music.
No. Wearing earbuds. Boy, this is old school, but how are they going to listen to you?
Well, what I have is I have an instructional
Yeah.
where they have their music during the drills, and they know the signs of what the drills are. Like, if I use my stick, they follow whatever the practice plan is. They
Yeah.
follow, they have the plan, right?
Your guys follow it with their earbuds in, and that's cool with you? I guess I'll allow it for today, but the thing is I would say no, because you can't talk to your players. Communication on the ice is sentinel. You put them on the island. Again, it's that island approach. I mean, you want them to be on the island. How are they going to hear? It's not just drills. It's communication. I'm going to end there because I don't want to disagree or agree. I want them to hear communication. I want them to hear the sights and sounds of the puck, because you don't just see the puck. You have to anticipate the puck, and you've got to have every ounce of your senses have to be up in order to know what's going on. You have to hear the sticks. You have to see the release. You have to take in all this stuff. And I think that would inhibit that, okay? But I really have to get off the stage.
All right,
okay?
get out of here.
All right, thank you.
John Vanbiesbrouck.